welcome back to another episode of the Retail Perch here with Shekar Raman and Gary Hawkins. Thank you again for your continuing support. And as we keep these podcasts moving, and we get these amazing guests on our show. And Gary, things are heating up here on the East Coast. I don't know about you in Denver, but it's been like the hottest summer I can ever remember.
It's been hot out here. We've had a lot of days over 100 degrees, and it's just starting to cool off a little bit.
Yeah, and I hope you guys out there are cooling off. My grass is dead, and I think I'm going to have a new lawn next year. Well, on top of that, one of my electric lines under my property popped, and the utility company had to dig off my entire front lawn.
Yeah, nice.
So everything's looking nice and brown, and I think that's the color for the season right now. But we're going to talk about more hotter things here. We have an exciting guest, somebody who's got many years of experience in retail, comes with a wealth of knowledge. Not only that, he's been in the industry, he's also been on the analyst side. So he's been working at as an analyst for many years. So he's really seen the gamut. And I think we're going to have a great conversation here, but I'll let Kevin introduce himself. Kevin, welcome to the Retail Perch.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be able to join. My name is Kevin Sterneckert, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer for DemandTec, which is an acoustic company. And as Shekar mentioned, I've done a few things in my career. I kind of think about my career in three major buckets. One is a retailer, and having worked with a number of different kinds of retailers in a number of different roles, which gives me a distinct perspective about what retailers are facing today. And then as an analyst, as you mentioned, many years as a vice president of research at Gartner, which gave me the behind the scenes look and also the sense to know what rocks to look under when you're evaluating capabilities and technologies and approaches and companies that have better than average odds of great success and delivery. And then a number of leadership roles in technology companies that span really the focus of converting sensing demand and delivering capabilities to decision makers to make improved decisions for their customers. And that's really where my career has centered around and shaped, and I feel it gives me a pretty good view of the world for a unique perspective.
Wow. So you've really done all the three sides of this triangle here: retailer, analyst, and solution provider.
Yeah, and some of it was early days. So, for example, I joined Walmart Supercenters when they had 65 stores that had been open for more than a year.
Wow.
And that was before they had all kinds of technologies. And I worked in the operations development group and on teams that rolled out things like scheduling based on activities and the front end. Speedy Checkout is a program that I had studied with the team that I built and deployed. It's 20 items or less because my team determined that that's would be the number. And so there's some fingerprints that I've got on a number of different organizations and things that I've done that kind of still persist.
Neat.
Oh, that's really neat. And so as an analyst, when you were working at Gartner, Kevin, what was some of the things that maybe you were surprised by or opened your eyes going from retailer to analyst? What was?
Yeah, I think one of the great advantages of being an analyst is that in any given day, I would have between 10 and 15 conversations with different retailers. And that's every day of the entire year, right? Every working day. And I would see things repeat multiple times because I talked to 40 or 50 retailers that are dealing with this one instance or challenge or problem or benefit. Whereas others might talk to one or two, maybe a consultancy or of some firm or technology companies might talk to a few people. And it's more difficult to identify true value or true trends or true challenges when you have a few data points than it is when you have 50, 60, 70, or 500 data points that give you a real sense of what's really happened. And that was a key learning within the analyst experience. And I think the other thing is that oftentimes technology providers are talking to themselves when they strain at certain messages or certain activities or certain lists or et cetera. And what the decision makers really want to know is, does this technology truly address my challenges? Can I really deploy it? And will my people adopt it? And will this technology help me with what I need in a few years, not just now? Are they thinking in a way that aligns with where I'm headed as a retailer also? And oftentimes the technology companies will list out, here's our differentiators. And there may be points of value, but you hear the same thing repeated over and over again, and it's really not a differentiator at all, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so those are some things that really came forward in that experience that helped me understand that customers really want to know what's different about you. They assume that you can do, what it is they're requesting, but the real determining factor for about half of the decision is what's really different about what you do. The other half is, can it be adopted, and can we really extract the value? Does it really solve our problem?
Yeah.
And I think that's you bring up a really good point, because I think many times there are plenty of exciting technologies out there, but for a retailer to make a decision, implement it properly, and have it rolled out, there is very often a long gap between the two, right? It can take 18 months sometimes, maybe 2 years, and the market's moved on and there's something new that's come in. And I find that, I don't know, from your experience, what have you seen in terms of retailers being able to adopt something quickly and actually push it out to their customers fast?
Yeah, I think that the key that really seems to make a difference in most deployments that lead to success is the executive level support to not only remove hurdles for change, but also endorsing the activities and supporting it in the dog days, right? When there's real work and it takes time to do it. One of the things we looked at Gartner was, when a project fails, why did it fail? Right? So if you have 10 deployments and 7 were successful and 3 were failures, why did those 3 fail? And oftentimes the reason for failure was not the technology, was not the organization's ability to change. It was time. And we learned that there's this maturity curve, and there are steps to achieving maturity. And you can't skip the steps. You need to hit every one of the steps and be proficient in every step. And if you move too quickly from one stage of maturity to another, you don't have the foundation required for the next. And that typically leads to challenges. And because of that time needing to be proficient in each step of maturity, sometimes companies decide to quit right before the curve changes between the investment in the project and the return on the value, right? And oftentimes they were so close to making it really work, and they decided that it was taking too long, or it's too hard, or the change is too difficult. But yet the kinds of transformation that are being required of customers and of competitors, sometimes the change of an organization is pretty meaty, and it's really the only way that the organization is going to truthfully be able to deliver what the customer is looking for, is to really change.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I keep going back to as I think a great example of success. I know a lot of retailers are looking to implement loyalty and personalization, and these are become buzzwords today. But I think last 5 years, I've seen kind of Starbucks roll out its loyalty program, and they did it in such a gradual, measured, and I think really well thought out manner. Now it's a full blown personalization. They deliver. Really, I respond to that. As a Starbucks drinker, not crazy, but I still see them. I notice them, and I want to take part in them. But they didn't do it overnight. They did it very gradually over 3 to 4 years. And like you said, I think they expected each level to reach a level of maturity before they went to the next and the next. They didn't try to build it all too fast.
Yeah, well, even if you can build it fast and roll everything out at once, that's really not a good practice, right? Because from a shopper perspective or consumer perspective, it's important to continuously roll out new benefits or new features, et cetera, to keep it fresh, keep people engaged, get new shoppers onto the platform, et cetera.
Well, and Gary, I think to your point, one of the most helpful approaches to change is that you're constantly monitoring the progress of your audience, right? The progress of your customers.
Yeah.
And if you deploy and you think you have the answer in your deployment and you don't have a built-in cycle for review and revisions, you're likely going to miss the mark because your customers are constantly changing, right? It's the idea of building a highway system. It takes so long to do it and plan it and deliver it and et cetera, that by the time that it's done, you need to do it again because the growth is, the growth didn't stop during the delivery of the new highway system, right?
No, that's right.
And it's got to be planned in for cycles of revision and review and improvements, or what you end up with falls short of what the customer is demanding.
Yeah.
But your competition isn't stopping either, right? So for retailers, they're constantly evolving and changing and improving as well. And the competitors, they're moving the target also, right?
Right. Especially new digital native competitors that almost, by default move significantly faster, right? And, as we look at what's happening with technology and how fast and ever faster tech and innovation is happening, I think one of the biggest threats to traditional retail is simply they've become accustomed to taking a lot of time. A sales cycle of a year or two before they even make a decision around some new capability, and then a year or two, if not even longer, to deploy it and roll it out. Nobody's got 3 or 4 years anymore to think about these things.
Yeah, and that's true. And it's interesting, the expectations of retailers for the return on investment is also different in parts of the world. So in North America, oftentimes retailers are looking for return on investment in 9 or 10 months.
Right.
In Europe, they're looking for 5 to 7 months, right? And a quicker return on their investment. And so projects with this idea of taking a year or more to determine who you're going to select and then a year or more to deploy, they're long in the tooth, and most senior teams don't have the patience for those long drawn out projects, right? On the other hand, some of the best innovations are those that have really taken some time, right? So this whole idea of drone deliveries by Amazon and others, this has been around for a long time. People have been working on it for a long time, and it's taken a lot of time to kind of figure this out. But for the people that are willing to invest in something that's never been done before, with all kinds of regulations that were put up to prevent it from being successful, there's efforts now that are underway that make it a real opportunity for those that have stayed the course and who have invested, to think that you can order something and have it delivered on a dot in the middle of your yard is a pretty impressive and amazing feat, right? In 20 minutes, I can have just about anything 5 pounds and under delivered to my home.
Yeah,
Right? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So
No.
you're saying pretty soon I'm going to have a FedEx truck pull up a mile from my home, the doors open and 20 drones fly out and go deliver and come back.
Yeah.
Or any scenario of that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but and part of it is fuel, part of it is time, part of it is convenience, part of it is security, right? When a box is delivered to your fenced-in backyard, it's a little bit more secure than sitting on the front porch.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So Kevin, I want to kind of shift gears here and talk about something that I know in other conversations we've kind of touched upon, which is, the industry has been, especially the grocery industry, about trade promotions, right? And how CPGs have funded most of these trade promotions for the better part of, I don't know, 6-7 decades now, right? And you have the weekly ad flyer. But you feel that somehow, I get the feeling that with all the changes that have happened in the past few years, data being available with COVID and, the increase in price of paper, distribution going down, something is going to happen to the whole trade promotion industry, right? And we don't know exactly what it is, but we see changes coming, right? Do you feel the same?
I do, and I'm starting to see some of those indicators, right? I don't think that the model of suppliers, vendors, offering trade funds to retailers, that mechanism itself, I don't necessarily see that changing in general. What I see is how does the supplier determine what to offer? How does the retailer execute on the intention of the offer? And how does the consumer see, understand, and act on that offer? I think that the pieces are what we're going to see a lot of change in the next several years. For example, today, suppliers have their own analytics working to help them understand which offers to extend. But wouldn't it be better if the suppliers could actually receive the insights about the consumers for the retailer, supported with the actual retail loyalty and transactional data of the consumers, instead of going through third-party sources or through syndicated or other types of analytic services to arrive at a surrogate, right? Instead of using the surrogates, just getting it direct. And in essence, leveraging a similar brain, AI or otherwise, that the retailer's using, so that they're going about the practice using a similar understanding of demand, so that what is offered by the supplier is something that the retailer can receive and execute on. So I think there's changes afoot there. And I think there's changes afoot for the retailer as well, in the way that those offers are presented to the consumer. I think one of the keys to change that is driving this need is that mass promotions are beginning to really not have the effect, have for some time, not had the same effect. There are fewer customers in the stores walking the aisles, seeing the sign, seeing the end caps, the side wing stacks, and things like that. Fewer customers are seeing the ads. Fewer customers know what's on promotion, and they know what's on promotion. Fewer do. So the effect of the mass promotion is declining. And there's a lot of effort by a lot of people to figure out a way to be more personal with those promotions in a way that allows the retailer to connect with the consumer in a conversation and reward them for their business and to incent them for more business. And I think that connecting the supplier and the retailer is important, but what is offered and how it's extended to the consumer, I see a lot of opportunity for change.
Yeah, that's fascinating that you say that, because I think when you think about trade promotions. Most people don't even know what's on sale in the store, apart from what you put on the weekly ad anyway, right? Not unless you walk the aisles in any case. So I always wondered about, the amount of operational effort that the retailer has to put in to put out that weekly ad on a week-by-week basis, and they have to do this 3 to 4 weeks in advance because it has to go to the print shop and get distributed. I mean, it's just it seems like with 2022, this day and age, there's got to be a better way of thinking about this and doing this, and really focusing your effort on taking care of customers as opposed to only planning the ad. I mean, yes, the printed ad, like you said, is not going to go away, but the method of delivery and informing customers and engaging customers, I see there's a lot of opportunity for improvement and change there.
Well, framing it, Shekar, is a bit more complex than even 3 or 4 weeks. So for a typical CPG retailer, there's about 12 weeks of planning that go in at any one time. So if you think about maybe there's 3,500 items that are promoted each week, times 12, that's how many items that are in play for some type of promotion in some stage of promotion planning and negotiation and et cetera with the vendors. So it's massive, right?
Yeah.
So upwards to 40 to 50,000 items are in play in some form of planning stages in a CPG retail environment. You take a grocery, right? And then think about the workload that's on the shoulders of a merchant to try to negotiate with the suppliers for all of those pieces. Make sure they've got the right ad work, the artwork, they've got the right advertising flow lines, they've got the right price, they've got the right costs, they've got the right volumes. All of that is incredibly difficult for a consumer who has changed dramatically. You can't take last year's ads and make some refinement and run it this year and be successful. Inflation didn't exist last year, this time. The customer's dealing with different challenges. And the same was true last year, right? The customer they were not in the middle of COVID, right? The same way they were. So it's just more change in the customer's experience in the last few years than we've seen in customers in a long time.
Right.
And retailers and suppliers, I believe, are looking for and will be rewarded with their customers when they're able to tap into what does the customer really want and need, and what vehicles of delivery and consumption are going to be the most appealing. What prices? Is it click and collect? Is it deliver? Is it whatever? And what prices for which items, right? So it's back to school in North America. What are the right items for back to school in an inflationary time versus emerging from COVID?
Yeah.
I promise that it's different. Now there's many items that'll be the same, right? Pencils and notepads and all that kind of stuff is kind of the same. But there are other items that are now different, where there's different sensitivities, different demand levels. And it's really important that retailers have the ability to know those changes. And it doesn't happen because you study your reports and your trends and you kind of figure it out. You need something more sophisticated that can sense demand and recommend and even allow you to test out what would happen if I ran this ad.
Right.
In this environment, with inflation, with my customers, in this store versus that store. And that is really valuable and important. And which channel? Should I use digital coupons? Should I use a personalized promotion? Should I use a mass? And what vehicle? What offer? And then with the suppliers, how do we fund this so that we both achieve the goal that we're seeking, which is more volume, more revenue, more profit? I mean, both companies have the same goal. And so lining it up so they have a similar tool that allows them to do it on both sides is, I think, where people are beginning to say, hey, we got to figure this out together.
Right. My head's spinning just thinking about all this, right? And this has to be done every week, year in and year out. And so, Gary, I know you know, from your retail experience, how did you, what's the drawbacks you see of the current method, and where do you see this
Well,
going?
so, as I've advocated for a long time, ever since, we launched one of the first loyalty programs and really began to understand all that data, that intelligence, and understand shopper value, that created a real shift in focus for myself, and for our team. And that shift really became more and more focused on, not necessarily what the brands want us to promote, but what do our shoppers want to buy? And, as we had more and more capability to provide that relevancy, right, that became the driving force. We actually tried to reduce the number of products we would have on mass promotion every week, or, at any given period, tried to curtail that and open up on, the selection of products that could be personalized or made relevant to each shopper. So that began to help. But, it's a different world today. And the other, as Kevin well knows here, the other big thing that retailers have to deal with is, if you're an independent, smaller retailer buying your product through a wholesaler, right, you're sort of beholden to what that ad plan is. You don't have a whole lot of choice and be able to say, well, I'm going to do this or do that. A larger chain, self-distributing, has much more control through their negotiation with their brand partners over what they're going to promote. So it's a tough slog.
I know. So, Kevin, if I were to ask you to see your, through a time tunnel and say 2028, what do you see? I mean, how do you see things changing here in terms of both the customer experience of accessing savings and how retailers work with CPGs on using these promotional funds? What would be some of the key things that you think would change?
I think that one of the keys will be, there will be new methods developed for consumers to become aware of offers for products that they care about. I think that's an important element that will adjust and improve. I think also the shopping experience is about to really change over the next few years. We've seen some prototypes, for example, how the metaverse would think about using VR and shopping. Now, I don't think it means that you have to wear a headset in order to shop. But if you think about the concept of, I want to buy something, it is not difficult today to present to the customer the products that they normally buy, and then have suppliers advertise to be able to be available for products that you would likely buy, and have only those products available in your store for you, each individual consumer, with alerts on promotions that are incenting you to buy, that are only available to you. And that experience then is about selecting what you want, and then a method of how you want to receive the product. Either I want to pick it up myself, I want to have it delivered to my home, or I want somebody to come into my dwelling and put it on the shelf or in the refrigerator or in the freezer or whatever it might be. And I think that there's a lot of work being done right now to change the shopping experience, which will largely convert the value of retail space, physical as well as digital, and give opportunity to a whole new set of companies and businesses that exist for one purpose, and that is to reduce the friction of receiving the products that consumers choose that they want, to buy. And I think there's a lot of that that's underway, and there's pieces, right? So how do you promote? How do you extend individual promotions that are going to work for one customer? And that's an important piece. How do you create an experience that removes all friction, right? And then how do you create an experience that isn't difficult for anyone to use and doesn't require special gear or stuff in order to shop? And I think we're seeing the beginnings, but I think that some of the beginnings will be short-lived because people are not, I don't know if people are going to want to wear a headset when they want to go shop. They may, because of the benefits that come with it.
Right.
But it may not be required if you want to have like a 2D experience versus a 3D experience.
Right. Right. Oh, think about it. I think, 70 years ago, you walked into a grocery store, the owner picked up the products and put it in a bag for you and gave it to you. You didn't walk around the store. And so I think at that point, the idea of pushing your own cart up and down the aisle might have seemed like too radical a change, right? So who knows? Maybe people will be willing to wear something on their head and walk around, right? They can kind of
and maybe so,
Yeah.
right?
I agree with Kevin. I don't think people are going to be walking around the store with a full VR headset. But, if you read about what Apple's developing, Samsung and the others, in the sense of smart glasses and augmented reality and providing a digital overlay to the physical world, right? In, glasses just like we're all wearing, that to me is a game changer, right? And that, I don't have a problem wearing a pair of glasses. And if you can enrich my experience, my life, by providing that digital overlay, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some technologies that I think customers are willing to accept that are different than maybe what we might think they would be willing to accept. So for example, today, if there was a self-driving car that I could just say, come pick me up and deliver me, I didn't have to own it, I didn't have to insure it, and it just gave me a charge for the usage, and I didn't have to drive it, I would not care what it looks like. I wouldn't care what shape it was. I wouldn't care what color it was. I wouldn't care anything about the way it looked if it could do those things. So with glasses, for example, if I could just say, give me the details of this product, and it shows up in the air in front of me, and I didn't have to do anything, and it wasn't too cumbersome, and it didn't have big, huge, thick temples and all this stuff that the early prototypes had, I would be in for that. And if I were wearing these glasses and I'm in a store and I'm looking at something and it pops up with a promotion and I say, yes, accept, and then that promotion is now available to me when I check out, I would love that. And I don't think that the fact that I do or don't wear glasses would encumber me with wanting to have something that delivered that kind of experience, right?
Right.
But I do think that the method of shopping is going to change dramatically. I think there's a real place for the physical, and I think we see lots of experiments. Like Best Buy just announced that they're going to do a showroom only format and test that out. Which is interesting, because wasn't that a format that was in the early 80s that kind of didn't work? But anyway, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's important that these new approaches or even refined approaches from the past be tried, because the consumer, I don't believe, wants the hassle of going and messing with traffic and then messing with time and delay and like shopping, going up and down aisles and shopping. When I go to a home improvement, I have 3 things on my list, and there's 200,000 square feet, and I know where nothing is. Just give me a map and show me how to get where I'm at, and then let me say I need help, and then somebody comes to help me, and then I put it in a bag and I check out and I'm done, and I don't even have to stand in line. I'm in.
Right.
Yeah. Physical shopping has become a very dissatisfying experience. And I'm probably being nice when I say that, right? You go into, I still find the appeal going into a retailer like a Wegmans or a Dorothy Lane or somebody where it's inexperience, right? You're discovering new foods, you're sampling, trying new things. That's an experience. I'm happy to spend my time doing that. But, I was just in a store last night with Heather, national chain here in the Denver area. And I just couldn't get over how miserable an experience it was. Out of the handful of things we went in there looking for, they had maybe 2 out of 5. The others, big holes on the shelf. My wife Heather went to the pharmacy, stood in line with literally a dozen other people, waiting half the night to get a prescription filled. It's just not a good experience.
Yeah, I do think that there are retailers who are getting it right. For example, a return at Costco or Amazon is frictionless, right?
Yep.
It's easy, there's not an issue, right? And there are other retailers that recognize that they got to fix their return process, right? You can't limit your best customers to return because they're your best customers and they spend a lot and they happen to return products from time to time, which might be more than the normal because they shop, right?
Yeah.
So I think that people are beginning to recognize that you got to make returns easy and painless. I think that customers are retailers are recognizing that service needs to be exceptional, and you've got to find ways to delight customers. HB does a great job at that. Kroger does a really good job at that. Publix does a great job at that, right? You've got to have people that are informed. I think Home Depot does a great job with people who know what they're doing, that are available to ask questions, right? I am not a plumber, but if somebody will show me what I need to do, I can follow instructions and I can do it.
Yeah.
Right. But if I go to a place to buy just parts to do plumbing, I'm probably going to be calling a plumber because I will mess it up, right? Unless I have help. And YouTube can only get me so far.
Well, that's true.
And in fact, last week in our episode, we talked about exactly that, Gary, which was, very often, I think, obviously price is not the only way to compete, right? If you can have a fantastic experience in store, very often you don't have to compete on price, and you maybe don't have to have so many promotional items because people come in for the experience. And, I would pay an extra $10 per trip if I enjoyed the experience because, the $10 is worth the experience. And I think there's many retailers who are actually doing a great job. They may score low on the price competitiveness, but they score high on customer satisfaction.
Sure.
Yeah, I do think it's important though, especially now with the cost of living being much higher, that retailers take an extra measure of care for how they interact with all of their customers. There are customers where they can't afford the extra $10 for that experience.
Right.
And it's important that retailers recognize and understand that the key items, those competitive items where customers are making decisions and trading between having versus needing, right, or wanting, it's important to recognize what are those items and what is the price that customers are willing to pay. Right. Because remember, customers really do not care how much it costs you to get it to the shelf. What they care is what is the price that you're charging, and do I value that?
Yes.
What I would receive, and what is available from competition.
Yeah.
And that's really the right price, right? What is the price everyone else is charging? What are you charging? And is it worth it to me? And sometimes the price needs to be held down, even though the costs have gone up, or you're going to lose the customer to someone else. Right. There's no surprise that customers are frequenting dollar stores. They offer things that customers need who have fixed income or tight budgets, and they offer it at very low prices. Yeah. And quite honestly, customers are okay with tinfoil that's just not as thick as what they might get somewhere else because it's tinfoil. And all they really do is want to make sure that they can protect the pan so it doesn't take extra time to clean. Right. Right. Yeah.
No.
And if it's going to be $1 versus $3, there are customers who will absolutely make that choice to shop at a value provider over something who is maybe their normal choice.
Yeah. Plus, I think in the grocery industry, you have your customers, if you treat them right, for a much longer period of time than most traditional retail, right? Other retail. So if you really have a customer, do you want to maximize the profit on one trip, or do you want to maximize it over 5 years, right? So I think that plays into the strategy of how you deal with your customers, and your pricing and your optics all, have to mirror that long-term value of the customer. Right.
Right. I think that the challenge comes is when the retailer gives the customer a reason to examine change. Right. So if you're constantly removing friction, you're constantly improving the experience, and you're constantly reminding them of your very competitive prices, you've not given them a reason to change. But when you give them reasons, your service suffers, your assortment or availability, or your prices are out of alignment. When those things begin to become issues, you've given the consumer a reason to look for alternatives. And that's when you have.
Right. Wow. This is, Kevin, I'm just looking at the clock, and I just jumped to 45 minutes here. It's a great conversation, and very often, we speak to people on the show who've had extensive experience like you. It seems like, I can keep talking for hours, and certainly, Gary and I are not shy about conversations. We're talking
Not
about
at all.
No, but this has been a great conversation, and I think our listeners would definitely have loved this. And I hope there's plenty of retailers listening, because I think there were just a ton of nuggets. It's not very often we get a guest on the show who's had experience in retail as an analyst, top analyst, who still contributes, by the way. Kevin writes and keeps himself busy and is constantly writing blog posts, and you can find a lot of his content all over the place. And now he is heading a solution provider, DemandTec, part of Acoustic, doing some amazing things at DemandTec themselves. But Kevin, tell us a little bit about DemandTec before we close out. What does DemandTec do?
Absolutely. In short, we do two things really, really well. We connect retailers and suppliers in a trade network, so they can exchange costs and trade funds and negotiate in Sarbanes-Oxley compliance. And then we offer a set of solutions around price, promotion, and markdown that allow the retailers to do something with those changes that they've received from their suppliers. And we can do that all together as a platform, or we can do each individual solution as a standalone module. And we have many customers that are doing everything in between. And that's what we do. And we translate demand into decisions.
I mean, you're really setting up the future of this whole trade promotions that we talked about, making it easy, bringing technology and intelligence into the whole mix. So if you want to get a hold of Kevin, just go to the DemandTec website, or you can look him up on LinkedIn. Kevin at DemandTec.com. Would that be the?
It'd be Kevin.Sterneckert at Acoustic.com.
Acoustic.com.
Yeah, because DemandTec is an acoustic company.
Correct. Yeah. Acoustic. Yeah, as in sound. So, all right. So listen, Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show. And by the way, I forgot to tell you this, but if you send us your address, we will actually mail you this mug, the retail.
Oh, that's cool. I definitely want one of those for sure.
Oh, absolutely. You want to send Stephanie your address and we'll mail it to you. And next time we get you on the show, we will have some coffee together with the mug.
All right. Very good. Well, it's a pleasure, Shekar, and Gary, as always, it's a great opportunity to visit with you as well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being with us.
Make sure to join us every Monday and connect with us at The Retail Perch on Instagram and Facebook.
And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at theretailperch@birdseye.com.
Until next time, this is Shekar.
And this is Gary, signing off.